Do you want to know how to start your dream career in a space that is not diverse? And do you want to know how to really make your voice heard? Then you should watch this episode. Today I talk with Fadumo Olow. She's a sports journalist, youth worker, and podcaster. And she's best known for opening up conversations around the growth of women's sports, footballing culture, and diversity. And we talked about how to find your dream career, how to make your voice heard, especially in spaces that are not diverse, how to get into media and journalism, and how to collaborate with major brands. Fatima worked with brands like Adidas and Coca-Cola and is also a writer for magazines like Galdem. We also talked about her activism and social work and how you can build a fulfilling career for yourself. She also shared her insights into how to get into podcasting if you have no money. So I really hope you love this conversation and get a lot of value out of it. Whatever you learn, put your favorite quote, timestamp, or any kind of insight that you got out of this conversation in the comments below and share this episode with someone who really needs to hear this. So let's get into it. Bismillah, assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for joining.
Walaikum salam. Thank you for having me.
For those who don't know you, could you introduce yourself in 30 seconds?
My name is Fadumo or Fatima. I am a youth worker. I'm also a sports journalist, and I do loads of activism against and with using sports as a social impact to help young people.
And how did you get in all this, all these different things that you're doing?
It's weird. I like to say that I'm involved. People often say you've got 50 different types of jobs. I never know what you're doing, which is true most of the time. But my first thing, which I do probably on a more regular basis and I have been doing for the longest, is I'm a youth worker, and that has just come from just volunteering, really. I by chance got into volunteering for the charity that I now work for, and I just found out that I just really enjoy it, and I was like, this is good. I could do this for a living. And that's how I got into it. So that's how which is how the sports came about, and sports kind of came off in a similar way. I was doing the youth work, but I was like, I really want to go back to doing sports because I grew up doing a lot of sports and just had a couple of years gap for various reasons, but I didn't know how to do it. So I thought, let me just go to volunteers or let me go to events and just see what happens, and kind of that's how it came about.
And you do all these different things while you are having your podcast and you have your own. You are present as a journalist and just as a person that is building a brand in a space of journalism, but also sports on a lot of platforms. So you have built a very, very strong personal brand for yourself. I can see you being represented in a way I feel you want to be seen when I look you up online. And that's basically a personal brand. You have that reputation. So what was the journey in really creating this personal brand for yourself and really finding your way of combining all these things into the person you are?
It's been a bit weird because initially I came together with a friend of mine and we started our podcast called I Think She's Offside, which is about bringing underrepresented conversations to life in sport. So we started that podcast, and that was our brand. So people would look at that podcast and they would associate it with us, the both of us. And I think as time went on, we started to work on our own individual products. I did some brand work with Adidas and a few other people, and I think that kind of helped me build my own brand, because over time I was doing my own little projects. So for me, I started off as a part of as a project, and then for me it was, how do I differentiate that and how do I build myself outside of that? And I think that's what I'm doing at the minute, is trying to get involved in different things in my own kind of way. But I wouldn't say there's been a set way that I've done it. It's been more just trial and error. But now that I look back on it, it would have been nice had they been like, oh, this is what you should do. I'd be like, okay, cool, I'll do that. Rather than it being, that was a bad idea.
Yeah, there's never really a pathway, especially now in personal branding. You just trial and error, like you say. But what I want to know is, you have been doing all these different projects and you're now looking at how to really make it you. What are the things that you really want people to remember about you when they see you online?
Oh, that's hard. I don't know. I don't think of it like that. I kind of just think it's weird. I love to share, obviously, in terms of journalism. I love to talk about football and I love to talk about sports because that's my first and major interest. So for me, it's about how do I share other people's stories. But what I kind of realised, I think, especially over the last couple of weeks, because there's been a lot of personal stories that I've worked on has me as the lead kind of subject or character, and that's been out of my comfort zone because I don't like to be the lead person. And I guess for me, I'm not just representing myself. I'm kind of representing other people's whose stories are forgotten or not represented well. So in the sense that by just being present, I am somewhat of a face for other Muslims or other women to go, oh cool, there's someone else, let me do something else, and it might be a little bit better, and they might do it after and it's a little bit better. I guess for me, it's not so much about what I bring to the table, but it's more about if I'm present and other people notice I'm at the table, hopefully it gives enough of like kind of an inclination for them to invite more people that look like me and more people that can relate like me into that whole conversation. Because I think that's what's missing, especially in sports. It's like a lot of people from different ethnic minority groups or religious groups aren't considered because they're just not present, and it seems like they're not interested because they're not at the table. Whereas I'm like, if I'm at the table, you'll know that our community is interested and you'll start inviting more of us there. So yeah, I guess for me it's more about that, and it's not so much about remembering me. It's kind of just like, I hope that by me being there, it encourages other people to come along and join it, so it doesn't just become me.
Yeah, yeah. So what is the beautiful thing about what you're saying is that you want to like be the person at the table so other people can come and join. What I just want to know is how is it to be the first person there?
It's alright. Like it's not. It has its, obviously it's like it's you know what it is. 9 times out of 10, it's actually just fine. Like, but it's just every now and again it's a little bit weird. It's like I went to a predominantly ethnic minority Muslim school. So although it was a Church of England school, majority of people were Muslim. It was a very confusing place. But it was, and when I went to university, I was very much, although my course was very mixed, and I was like the only ethnic minority in my course, or the only hijabi in my course, the people that I socialized with looked like me and were like me. So for me, it's very weird to now be in environments where I'm the minority. I can't, because I've just used to being part of a majority for a very long time. So I guess for me, what I've noticed is that there's a lot of curiosity about me. So like people ask about me wearing a hijab, and then they're very weird about asking because they don't want to sound offensive. You know what I mean? Like it's just like, how are you? Good. What do you do? So how did you? Literally like a 10-minute conversation, and all they want to know is about the hijab, but they don't know how to say it. So that's what makes it a little bit awkward, I guess, at times. And you do have that like. Sometimes it's not people treating you differently. Like it's just by the fact that by being, for example, if I go into like a media event and I'm the only hijabi there or the only person of color there, although like no one's right outwardly treating me differently, you already feel out of place because you don't see anyone that looks like you. You're kind of like, are we really supposed to be here? And I think that's what a lot of people don't realize is like, although they try very hard to be like, oh no, we treat everyone the same, blah, blah, blah. It's like, it's great. But your environment isn't built for everyone to be the same. Your environment is only catered for one group of people. So when another one shows up, they're automatically going to feel awkward about it. And it's like, if you aren't actively trying to engage them, it's going to be like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, I can so relate. Like the funniest thing is, so first of all, you get used to kind of being in spaces that are not built for you. But then the awkwardness I find a lot of times when people ask you about things that they find shameful to ask because they don't know how to ask, and they think they are like stupid asking, or they will ask a stupid question that would, I don't know, hurt you or whatever. Then I find it's more awkward for them than for me, but they make it awkward for me because they feel awkward and they openly are like awkward about it.
Yeah.
So it's just like this whole thing where I sometimes just say, there's no stupid questions. You can ask me whatever you want. And sometimes there are like questions where you're thinking, you could just Google this. You don't have to ask me.
And you know what? I think it's good for. I really found that it's been good for me because I think because of the background, the upbringing I've had, I've just assumed. I'm like, everyone studied religion in school. Everybody knows, like but people don't, and it's crazy. But it's one of those things like. I'm more appreciative of it now. So like, I remember I went abroad on an event, and I was traveling with a group of people, and although they lived in London, they'd never actually like worked or been alongside a Muslim. And I was like, how do you live in a big London, diversity in the world, and you've never? But it was to the point that like lunch was being given out, and I must have said, I was like, most of the time I try to tell people I eat halal food only, and sometimes I forget. So I'm like, if that's the option, I'll just take vegetarian. Yeah. But I always have this weird thing about trying to explain to people I'm not actually vegetarian, but
exactly.
I'm eating vegetarian right now because the food's not halal. So I'm there trying to tell this girl, and she just doesn't get it. And she's like, so but I've got a ham sandwich. I don't know if it's halal. I go, no, but ham can't be halal because it's pork, and pork isn't halal. Yeah. She just was like, you don't eat pork? I was like, no. And then later on, she's like, you don't drink at all? No. And literally, it baffled her mind. It blew her mind that I just don't drink and I don't eat pork. And what blew her mind is like that pork couldn't be halal. She goes, but your chicken's halal. Like, I know that because chicken can be halal. And then it teaches me, like, I need to find better ways of explaining what halal is. Yeah. Because to someone else, if halal is like the way like the meat is treated or the meat is cut in the process of being it, to her logic is pork should also be halal then, because if you just deal with it the same way you deal with chicken. And I was like, yeah, I know, but there's exception to this halal rule, and pork is one of them. So it's good, like in that sense, I'm learning how to better communicate and better represent, hopefully, myself and my faith, but it's also a little bit challenging at times.
Yes. Do you find it also a little bit annoying or like monotone if people ask you always about the same things instead of asking you about your expertise or what you think about the situation? Because you are in sports, and you are a Muslim woman in sports, you are visibly Muslim woman in sports, you're a Black Muslim woman in sport. So how, like, is it sometimes that you have to fight for the topics that you really want to talk about in contrast to what people want to know because of how you look?
Yeah, I guess so. In some way it is. But I think I actively try to make sure I talk, even within sports. I think in the lead up to the Women's World Cup, I was talking a lot about women's football, and that's all I became known for. And I went abroad and I did works with organisations and brands on women's football. So when I came back, I actively tried to not do stuff in women's football because I didn't want to be known as just a girl in women's football. So I'm trying to do a bit more in men's football. I'm doing stuff in other sports. So, but I guess that's something everyone has to do in sports. They have to actively try and lay their foundations in one sport and then try and build a way or up from that. And that's like what I'm trying to do. But I just try not to engage in every discussion. Like, for example, I remember someone got in touch with me. My biggest one at the minute is whenever there's a racial scandal in sport, radio stations love to ask me to come up at 7 a.m. And I was like, no, thank you. You know, like, it doesn't make sense to me. They're like, oh, this race scandal happened with, like, for example, Raheem Sterling. It was an elite Black footballer in the professional world. What do you think? And I was like, I'm not an elite Black footballer in the professional world. But if I was, I'd get in touch. But like, I don't feel the fact that I should have to speak on behalf of everyone that I somehow represent. Like, I don't fully represent that category, but just because I'm Black, they'll be like, that kind of works. You can still do it. And I'm like, I can't really though. That's not how it works. So I guess in all industries, you have to actively try and just upskill yourself. And I guess that's what I'm trying to do, is upskill myself and show that I'm not limited to the few sports that I've started into. But at the same time, I do think I'm always open enough to talk about topics that affect me and issues that affect my community, because I feel like if I don't, then nobody else will. Yes. And that's what it is. It's like when you're one of the few people in that circle, if you're not the one sharing about it, then no one will. Like, one example is I work for a current sports network, and you know, Nike came up with the hijab, the women's modest wear hijab. And to me, I was like, guys, that's a big deal, you know? That's a big deal in the world of sports. Yeah. But no one in that room was picking up on it because it's not on their radar. So I guess in some way I do have to keep watching out for stories in my community and bring them to the table so that someone else can share them. And then now, off the back of that, one of my colleagues will hopefully go and interview one of the models who wore the swimsuit, and hopefully that story will come up. But I guess that story wouldn't have come around had I not been in the room like, guys, Mike did a big hijab, you guys should probably look at it.
Yes. It's important to be there, and then also to be aware that you were there in the room and you have a voice. But how do you get the confidence to actually speak up, and also to speak up in situations or in spaces where other people might not speak up or might speak up against what you have to say? How do you get that confidence?
You know what? I think it's trial and error, and it takes time, because I think especially when you're doing something for the first time and you're trying to break into any industry, you just want the opportunity. Yeah. So you don't put a value on the opportunity. You'll be like, take me for free. It doesn't matter. Take me any day of the week. That's kind of how you'll see it. And it's like, as you go on, you start to realize, you know what, you are more valuable. They need you more than you need them. And it's a constant thing. Like, I have to constantly remind myself, they need me more than I need them, because they can't, it's like, for example, like, I couldn't just show up to your work and do your job one day just because happen to wear hijab. It's not gonna work. Like, I would make a mess of it. And the same way, you might come to my job and you wouldn't be able to do it for a day just because you wear hijab. And it's like, you have to really believe in the fact that the skills you have and that diversity isn't just like the color of your skin or your faith in that. Diversity comes in the form of like your upbringing and your experiences. That's what diversity is, and that's what people need. Like, if you've got 30 people in a workforce who all come from the same estate, they're only going to have ideas for themselves.
Yes.
And you need people outside of that to come in and be like, I saw this because I watched it on TV when I was a kid, probably from somewhere you didn't watch TV. And that's what real diversity is. So I think when you start to look at diversity and equality outside of your skin tone and, the colour and what you wear and stuff, and you realise that it has a lot of value and a lot of extra areas, then you start to realise that actually, there's a lot of value in what I do, and I can put a price on it. And if someone doesn't meet that price, also, and I guess for us as Muslims, having, tawakkul ala Allah and realising that if we value ourselves and are doing stuff for ourselves, and it might not come around this time around, you kind of have the confidence to go, Qadar Allah, it'll come another time, but maybe this one wasn't meant for me.
Yes, yeah. And that's so important what you're saying, because you have that confidence because, one, you have the tawakkul, and the other one is the diversity of yourself. Like, you know how unique you are in spite of how you look like, or your faith, just the person who you are, your skills and your experiences, and that's your competitive advantage. That's what people will know you for and will want you hire for, or like pay you for, or whatever. So, and that's your personal brand, because that's all the facets of who you are and what, not only what you represent, but also what you have inside of you and what you can share with the world. I think that's very important what you just shared. I want to know how you actually tapped into journalism, and like how the step into like getting into media was and finding your voice.
Oh yeah, so like, it's weird because I was working on a project recently, and I had to kind of trail back as to when I first started media, and I was like, it wasn't that long ago. It was like maybe a year and a half, but I feel like it's been longer because I've just been like going at like 100 miles an hour to try and do everything that I can do. But I guess for me, the way that came about was I attended a conference called Kick It Out, which is a charity that does some work against racism in professional football and like non-league football. And it actively campaigns against that. But they also have a career day where they get professionals in sports to come in, give up their time for free, and they get everyday people who want to get involved in sports to show up on that day, and they kind of get mentored through the day. So I showed up to that event because I knew one of the athletes who were hosting it. I hadn't seen her in years. Like, I knew, like, if I went up to her, I'd be like, hello, please remember me. But my thing was, like, I saw her on social media and I was like, I want to do something a bit different. Like, I was enjoying my job, but I wasn't sold on it. I was like, nah, I could do this for a while. Maybe not like forever, but I could do this for a while. So I was like, let me try something else. And I really enjoyed that day. And then I went back to another one of the events, and I really enjoyed it. And I guess between the first and the second event, I actually didn't do anything. So it was only when I went for the second event and someone said, oh, I saw you at the last one. What did you do? And I was like, about that, I didn't actually do. And that's when I was like, I really need to start doing stuff to get into sports. So I went through the very traditional route of applying for a lot of things, kick-off schemes and work experience placement. And like they say in the requirements, you don't need any experience, but you still don't get it. And I'm there like, I don't have any experience. I don't understand. I'm hitting all the criteria. I was like, I have zero experience, but I'm still not getting these schemes. And it was getting very frustrating. So I met with a friend and we were like, you know what, why don't we just do our own podcast? What's the worst that can happen? And I was like, we have phones, and we literally start to record on the back of our phones in a house individually, and would edit from like a free software at home. And yeah, it started to pick up quite well. And then off the back of that, we would continue to go to lots of events, share like these mini business cards we made, and really just spread the word on the podcast as much as we could. And that was, I would say, was my first entry to real sporting things. And a lot of it was just us putting ourselves out there, us investing our time and our money, in the sense that obviously we were using buying stuff, going to games where we were buying the tickets for and reporting there rather than being invited to games. But I guess that shows a unique eagerness like, I guess out of 1,000 people that want to do journalism, not everyone's showing up to games for free and doing stuff for free. So one thing I learned very early on in this industry is that you just have to do stuff, and you have to show that you're being proactive, even if the opportunities aren't there for you. You kind of just have to make your own way. And that's how I initially started to do it. And yeah, off the back of that, a lot of things kind of came together for me. So I started writing a few articles for a few magazines, and I realized that what I really enjoyed is that I think one of my first articles that I wrote that I really enjoyed is I spoke about why there isn't a senior hijabi footballer in the Women's World Cup. And I looked at the history of the hijab ban, and people just didn't believe there was a hijab ban. And I was like, oh my God, how do none of you know this? I don't understand. Like, considering that my whole childhood was based around the fact that there was a hijab ban in football, and that's why I didn't play football, I was just shocked that nobody knew. And what I think that drove me more into sport was like, at least I can bring conversations from communities where I'm like, why are you not being celebrated? Why are you not the biggest face of sports right now? And it's like, because nobody knows. And I was like, if I can play some part in making that known, then yeah, it's good.
Yeah. And that is giving people a platform with your voice, right? Like, I think that is one of the biggest things that you can do when you create your own form of journalism, whether that is writing for magazines, having a blog, social media, podcasting, whatever you're doing to put your voice out there, you create a platform for other women to gain, that attention from the outside, because you are suddenly the platform. You're not looking to a bigger publication to finally give you a voice and finally give you people that look like you the position, but you are the platform yourself.
Yeah,
and I find that very interesting.
Yeah, I find it interesting. It's also like, as time goes on, especially when you find a niche and you find something unique. And it wasn't like I didn't set out to be like, oh my God, I need to find something unique to do. It was literally a case of me and my friend met up and we were like, let's do this. And we realized as we were doing it, a lot of people were like, oh my God, I've never seen people like you do it, or I've never seen people that look like you do it. So we became unique off the back of just wanting to do it. It wasn't something we originally set out to do. It wasn't like, oh my God, let's sit together, let's do a really unique plan, see what makes us different and see what happens. It was just a case of, we just did it. And off the back of that, it became in somewhat a good success. And yeah, we did some stuff around the Women's World Cup. We traveled out quite a bit. And then off the back of that, now I host a number of different podcasts and radio shows. So I guess for me, it's literally just been a case of just showing willingness to learn and willingness to do things. And honestly, I would travel an hour for a 45-minute meeting. And I was like, I could do this over the phone. But it was still really important and really skillful for me to do. And all of those things, I think, eventually add up to something really successful and really good as time goes on. But it's also having the patience to just deal with it.
Yeah. So what do you think are the most important skills that you, apart from patience and I think investing was a big thing that you said, investing time and also money and real work into what you want to do. But if you tell anyone else okay, this is the steps that I would take to, get closer to building my brand or finding my dream career, what would be the steps that you would say, this is what you should do in hindsight? Okay, maybe the things that you did weren't planned out, but what in hindsight would you have done, what you could have done in steps that would have made it more straightforward or easier or faster?
I guess the biggest thing would be take the initial step to make it happen. I would always say, don't visualize an end brand. For me, I don't decide. I don't. Even now, you talk about personal branding, you talk about representing yourself. I still don't see myself as a personal brand. I just see that I do my work and I just share it online. It's as basic as that. It doesn't need to have a 5-point plan. It doesn't need you to have different visuals and different goals for it. You can just set out to do it. And as time goes on, you start to narrow down your niche. You start to go down. The only way I can see is you lay your foundations, and when you lay your foundations to build a house, it's quite wide, and as you kind of go higher up, it becomes smaller, pyramid thing. And I guess just see it like that. Just start, and when you initially start, it will be a case of sharing everything, and then you realize, actually, you know what, this is what suits me, or this is the audience that I want to build, because this is the area I'm into. So initially, for me, I was sharing a lot about youth work and sports, and I was sharing other things and other charities that I don't work for. And then I realized as time went on, my niche and what I want to do is sports journalism, so only start sharing those aspects. And then I feel like your natural growth and consumers and followers will grow off the back of what you give out anyway. So in that sense, I would say just go do that. And the only thing I can also think of is just like, don't look so much at the figures and the numbers and like what you do with things. And I think that's been the biggest learning curve for me, is when people say, oh, I want you to go and represent me here, or I want you to represent my brand here. It doesn't logically make sense to me. I'm like, I don't understand. Like I tweet sport articles. I share a few pictures on Instagram about things. I don't have a massive following. Like for me, I've always associated like if you are being individually sought out to go and do some brand related work, it's because they want you to, they see the numbers behind your influence, and that's sometimes not the case. Like for example, there might be a white middle-aged man who's got, I don't know, 30 million followers, but chances are his 30 million followers probably look and identify with him because of, you know, the style, the how he is and how he's lived and etc. Whereas if you're trying to engage myself and my audience, you probably assume they look like me or they are like me. So sometimes there's value in you beyond that, the numbers and the figures around it. And I think that's what's also very, very important.
Mini break, please don't forget to subscribe. Hit the subscribe button to get the newest and freshest content.
What I hear is like you say, just do and then document. And I think that is very important, that a lot of times you don't need to create a huge plan or a huge strategy. It's just documenting your progress.
Yeah, absolutely. And just change. And I don't think there's any error in changing it as you go along, in the sense that you might realize this isn't for me now, or let me take this element out of my work and just cut that bit out and maybe adjust it for a certain period of time. I think personal brand is timeless. And I think what makes personal brand even more successful is people's personal brand changes as the time goes on. Like if you look at footballers, for example, for a while they're seen as, you know, just the gold dust footballers, the best of the best, and it's all about having a really big personality and being really ego driven. And then you come out of retirement and it's about what are you doing to build the community. So your personal brand when you're younger is very different from when you're older, but it's still you as a brand, and it's all about how you make those transitions in between. So I think transition is equally important when you're still building your brand on a very small level. How do you transition out of one phase into the other, and how do you make that transition seem a bit smoother? So yeah, post and share and just document and make errors as you go along and just try and change them.
Yeah, just be yourself, because that's how the brand is going to grow with you, when you are yourself.
Yeah,
and just
exactly.
Going through your life. That's
and
very
it's personal. You can't use guidelines for it because it's personal for a reason. It's supposed to match you.
Yeah. So how do you then come from the personal into like building collaborations with brands or with projects or organizations? How has that transition worked for you from charitable work to then working with brands?
I think it's also realizing the why behind everything you do, or the UPS, or I don't know, whatever people want to call it. But why is it you're doing what you want to do? And it's also realizing you don't need to jump on the back of every opportunity, because I think one thing I've had to learn is that I don't need to be at the forefront of every single, I don't know, campaign or every single panel, or every single discussion just to represent. Sometimes, there's no reason for me to be in a media and politics panel, because I'm not that's not my area of expertise. And it's perfectly fine if I say to people, you know what, thank you for considering me, that's not my area of expertise, but I know so and so instead. Because you're still doing enough by sharing the opportunity to someone else. So it's also realizing that you don't need to be at the face of everything, but by being the face of what's valuable and what's gonna help you progress, and what you can work in partnership with, that's a lot more important. So for me, it's just been a case of just learning who's better for me, and also making clear if you're approached by someone to collaborate with them, as much as it's you them collaborating with you, it's also you collaborating with them. So it's also like, what do you bring to the table for them, and what do they bring to the table for you? And if they don't meet, then maybe it's not worth doing. Like, for example, me and you doing this is the fact that you share stories about people who build their personal brand. You share stories about Muslim women, and mine is because I'm trying to, just do what I'm doing in sports media and trying to kind of encourage more Muslim women to get into it. So in that way, we've worked out our common ground, is that we're doing something for the wider Muslim community. So sometimes it's like, although not all of our objectives match, maybe 5 or 6 of them do, and sometimes that's enough.
Yeah. So how do you then go step by step into building collaborations with just bigger brands? And can you give other women maybe a tip on how to either build a brand that attracts like bigger corporations to get in touch with you, or how to get in touch with like bigger brands to work with them on things that really matter to you?
I think it's just being just sharing your content. So from a social media point of view, I guess the biggest example for myself is Instagram. So a lot of the opportunities I've had have come off the back of sharing panels I've been on or discussions I've been part of on Instagram. And with that, early on, I guess it was a case of just tagging anyone and everyone, just seeing. And I realized very quickly that doesn't work, because people, and especially now that I work in social media, I realize a lot of them don't actually use. It's not like how me and you use our phone and Instagram. We've got computer softwares that help us do the Instagram when you're working, and it's like we rarely ever check what people are saying, commenting on our feed. It's more about the content and looking at actual statistics around it. So it's very different as to how brands look at their social media than when you're looking at it. Yeah. So when you think of it like that, it's just how can you make the visual or what you're doing, the content, most attractive, most appealing to audience? Because I think when your natural audience, when they pick up on something, it will naturally become very successful. Also working with agencies, sometimes people don't realize that brands don't always do the work for themselves. They also have a lot of agencies that deal with them. So if you're able to identify a number of agencies, reaching out to them via email, just to be on their radar. You might not even match their first 4 or 5 appeals, but something might come in the line of books, like maybe 5 or 6 months down the line, and it might be a case, oh, I remember so-and-so reached out to me, let me try and see if they're still around. So yeah, I think being proactive outside of social media is very important. So LinkedIn, emails, I think are very, very good ways of reaching out to different agencies and social media managers, and really just making them know that you're there, not necessarily that they have to look at you right now, but that you're there for like a later point.
Yes, yeah. To be in their mind, to just like be on top of their mind if something comes up. And that has to do, I had a conversation with the CMO of a big corporation, and she said you always have to repeat to people on top of like bigger corporations, or like you say, reach out to them on LinkedIn or email, and like you have to repeat to them who you are for them, so they understand, okay, this is the woman in sports journalism, we have to have her top of mind. So if something comes up and there's some talk about we need someone in sports journalism, and then you come up in the discussion because you have repeated yourself to be that person. You're just there, like, because if you don't present yourself, you're not going to be top of mind, and people are not going to know.
And I think that's why you really have to understand what you are, because if you're just coming, oh, I'm a Muslim woman and I want to make a name for myself, but you don't know how. If I say that to you, like, as a social media manager, you'll be like, okay, this is not very helpful at all. Like, you need to literally go. I would go to people. This is I'm Fadumo. I'm a sports journalist, specifically in football, and this is what I'm setting out to do. Mm-hmm. And at least you give them enough to be like, okay, now we know where you might fit into this. But I think by being very broad, you're also not helping yourself. But being able to narrow it down to what you specifically want to do is actually more proactive in the long run.
Yes, yeah. Because if you're general, you're just one of many. If you're very niche, you're the top of the one.
Yeah, you're one of the few.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So let's go from the big brands to really the social work you're doing. So building something in your work that is also of social impact and has a bigger purpose and is bigger than yourself. How did you get into really that work in charity work and in social impact work? And why do you think is it important for you in your work to have something that is bigger than yourself?
I got into charity work just like off the back of someone just reaching out saying they needed someone to help run a youth centre. So it was literally just contact. But from being in it, I think what I have really realised is that there is a huge lack of representation in terms of I think minorities and Muslims more especially. Like, I can't tell you the amount of young Muslim men and women I work with, but I am probably one of the only youth workers I've come across who wears like a hijab, and it's mad, because I'm just like, I think what we're raised to know for a very long time, especially when you come from backgrounds of where you used to use a lot of youth centres, or where that was accessible for you, you're kind of just taught to be like, you want to be the next best thing, or you need to be the top of your profession. And and you talk to always work on the grind. And I'm like, that's absolutely amazing. But at the same time, I always think you have to put into your community the same way that was put into you. So for me, I used to go to youth centres when I was younger. So someone out there gave up their time to help run that, and I would be very selfish if I wasn't doing that for someone else. So for me, it's more about being able to actively do something. And it's just, I think it's a form of sadaqah that I think a lot of people have forgotten. Like, sadaqah doesn't always come in the form of going to the masjid or donating money, or fundraising at the next crisis that is going on. Sometimes small sadaqah, which is more regular, can sometimes be more effective. Like, I would like to think that growing up, someone had a very positive impact on me on a very regular basis, and that's led to me being somewhat of a, like, you know, of a reasonable sense of a human being. Similarly, you know, I'll have a positive influence on someone else on a regular basis so that they can do the same, and that will go on. So, and that's kind of like a domino effect of you just going out and doing something, and you're part of that domino effect. And I feel like by not doing something, you're just stopping what could potentially go on to be more and more people going on to do stuff. So yeah, I do think, especially in a world where we're so, like, don't get me wrong, I'm one of the first people to, and my friends say it to me, sometimes I overwork, I'm overdriven, and I miss way too many celebrations and functions because I'm always working. But I would always try my best to at least be doing something within the community, because I feel like if you don't, then you're just benefiting yourself and you're not benefiting the people around you. And sometimes I feel like you can be selfless in order to be selfish in the long run. Like, you can go out and do stuff in the community, and it might help you in the long run. It might not, but at the same time, you haven't lost out.
Yeah, that's very true. And there's not, like, you don't have to ditch the big dream of becoming a millionaire and, like, building schools and, like, giving back and later on, but you can do it while you're doing the ongoing stuff. Like, you can do youth work, or you can have, like, a mentee and just someone that you know from another family or someone in your community that you give lessons, or, like, that you mentor in a specific field. If you're already a little advanced in your career, people love, like, especially young people, they want the input of, like, how did you get there? How can I get there? How do I get to know myself, what I want? So you can do the ongoing stuff while you shoot for the big star.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a case of, I always say, like, I'm nowhere near where I want to be in terms of, like, career or goals in that sense. But I still think I would be okay if someone's like, oh, what did you do to get here? And I'll be like, okay, this is what I did. And you could, it might work for you, it might not work for you, but you have some kind of a blueprint. And I think what we forget is that we didn't have that. So we shouldn't get caught up in the cycle of chasing something so much that we forget to do that to other people. Like, we forget to help them the same way that we, like, honestly, has someone said to me, like, 10 years ago, you'd make a great journalist, it would have cut out a lot of nonsense in my life. But no one did. So at least now I'm just like, I can look at people like, you'd make a great journalist, you should do it. And they might do it, they might not, but at least the option is there for them. And I'm hopefully cutting out a lot of nonsense in their life. And that's what I see as, please cut out the nonsense, like, you know, that you have to deal with on other people's lives, because we don't all have to do the same struggle. Like, it's not necessary.
Yes, yeah, that's very true. So what advice would you had like people to say to you so that your journey would be faster or easier, or you could have cut out some nonsense? What are, like, the top tips that you would have loved to hear when you started?
I don't know. I think, I'm not gonna lie to you, like, being younger, and especially, like, if you look at my degree and what I studied at school and I studied at college, it was never to do with journalism, like, because I didn't think that was a career for me. Like, I'd rarely seen women of colour doing it. I'd rarely seen people of colour doing it, and then even less Muslim women. Like, now I remember I saw a Muslim girl on work experience, and I thought it was the greatest thing in the world. I was like, what? You want work experience at a sports magazine? No way. Like, to me, it was just the greatest thing in the world. So for me, I guess it was, if someone could have brought that option to the table a little bit earlier, it would have made a massive difference. I might have started a little, because I'm 24 now. I only started really showing an interest in this when I was like 22 years ago. Has someone said to me, oh, at like 16, you know what, there's actually journalists out there, and there's Muslim journalists out there, I would have been like, wow, I could do that for uni, and it might have led to different. But Qadar Allah, like, I'm not unhappy with how it's come out, and sometimes I feel like this is a way, I've still been successful, or I'm trying to be successful in some type of way in it. But I always think that if I can stop someone else doing the same nonsense that I did, then hopefully, they'll get to it a bit quicker than I did. And I'm okay with that. And I was saying this to someone else, like, it's not so much about me getting to the top or me being very close to the top. If I'm like, for example, if I become a journalist and I become an very average journalist and I carry on in sports, that's cool, as long as someone else, another Muslim girl, becomes a better journalist than I did. And say another Muslim girl off the back of that decides that, you know what, she wants to be the first, hijabi football woman at a World Cup football event, and she does that. And she might not even win, she might just be like, 6th or 7th at the world, like, in terms of country. And then she might do better. It's just starting that cycle and keeping that cycle going. And that's what I mean, it's being content with that. And I'd be very happy knowing that someone else, even if they're better, has someone else come into that space and done something else. I'll be like, cool, there's two of us now, say something now.
Yeah. Nice. I love that because it like takes away the boundaries of, I'm in the space, I should be the only one, or all this narrative of I'm the only or I'm the first. Like, that's okay, you could be the only or the first, but it never should be like that for a long time.
And it shouldn't, and it should never settle like that. It should never be a case of there was a first like hijabi on this magazine, or there's the first hijabi at this event. Cool. I want you to celebrate the second just as much, because you made a big deal out of the first. So I need you to put a poster up about the second too. Because I think it's good, obviously, to acknowledge every milestone we make, but also encourage other people to be like, that was the first, but you need to step it up again. Like, you need to be second. There need to be at least 15 at the table. There needs to be 15 of those. It needs to be such a big deal that we're trying to think about other things to talk about. Because I think that's what's really missing. And I really, like, that's what I really hope in a lot of different industries and a lot of different, especially when it comes to, because I think people look at media and they're like, it's a very snobbish industry, it's a very elitist, and I'm like, it's really not. It's not that elitist, it's not that snobbish, and it's more about if growing up, as a kid, I used to watch a program called Blue Peter. You wouldn't have heard this, but it's a British program, and I remember me and my siblings used to literally imagine we came from Denmark and we didn't know the language, and for some reason we were all obsessed with Blue Peter because they just used to use all of these weird challenges. They would go out and do stuff outside, and it very much resembled the childhood I had in Denmark, which is very outdoorsy and very fun. So for me, I thought, that is amazing, I want to do that. But it was a case of, I looked at it for a while, I was like, nah, no, I don't think they let anyone other than white women or white men do that show, because that's what it looked like. And I remember a black guy came on there, and I thought it was like the greatest thing in the world. I was literally, and what's mad is, like, I remember my brother learned to swim off the back of seeing that show. He was literally like, oh, that guy does swimming, and I was like, yeah. And I remember we spoke about swimming, and there's this whole stigma about how black guys don't swim, and in Denmark it's a very swimming heavy culture. So for me, I was like, I don't understand how people don't swim in this country. All I learned was how to swim and ride a bike. So my brother obviously went into swimming the same way, and for me, I was literally just to see him, I was like, guys, there's a black TV presenter in children's TV. That is crazy. I'm going to be on TV. I don't know how, but I'm going to do the same thing. And what's mad is, like, now I see him still, because now he works in sports industry, and whenever this comes out, he'll probably be like, what a weirdo. But I see him in the sports industry, and I'm literally like, you don't realise, like, how significant your presence. I don't know what he said on the show. I can't remember any of the challenges he did. I don't actually physically remember him doing anything. He might have done loads of stuff. But all I remember is whenever I would sit down to watch Blue Peter, there was a white girl, another white guy, and there was a black guy there, and he was that black guy. And that's all I remember. And I think sometimes people don't realise that that's more than enough for other people, because I think by just being the face and by just being present, he doesn't know what he's done for so many other people to be like, oh, cool, I want to do the same.
Yeah. Sometimes you just need to understand that, okay, now there's a first person or the only person, but why are there not more people?
Exactly.
And that's where the problem starts, and that's where the solutions can be built up from. Inshallah. I love it. This is so iconic. And I think we need to think a little bigger. Like, now we're seeing fashion and we are seeing sports and we're seeing media, but we can also look into, being the first hijabi or like Muslim woman who owns an investment banking firm. or a fund,
exactly. Listen,
or like is a billionaire, like
everything. Exactly. There's enough stuff. There's enough success to go around. Honestly, for everyone. I think you just have to show that you want it, and you have to show that you're engaged, and you have to be gracious with how you deal with it, and you have to just try and be positive about it, and just try and like reflect a lot. Like it's weird. Like growing up, I learned a lot of. I went to a lot of like typical upbringing. I went to a lot of Quran classes, and I I saw a lot of stories. And to me, it was just like, that's a nice story. That's a really heartwarming story. But it was only as I've grown older, I'm like, oh my God, I can apply those, and I can be like, these stories actually have like a deeper meaning. And it's, especially when you look at stories of like stories of the Prophet and stories of the companions of the Prophet, it's like I've only been able to kind of pin those together like now that I've been at work, and like working, for example, in a different environment that I'm not used to working at, and how do I handle that? How do I make myself known but also not tone myself down for other people, but at the same time being able to accommodate for other people? And it's a lot to even think about, but it's like I now have actual examples of those, and we've had those examples for years, but I'm able to apply to them for the first time. And it's really cool.
So if you have the confidence to do it because you have the vision, you have the confidence, just do it and be that person for someone. But if not, you should do the research like you did or you're doing, and that not only in that field or in the current or modern times, but also in the times of the Prophet ﷺ and his wives. They are a big they are huge role models. If we just go and dig deeper into history, we find so many role models that we can like pinpoint to like see, okay, this is what they did and this is the equivalent that I could do in this time. So like just researching and like building up that confidence if you don't have it yourself now, I think that's a big thing to do.
And I think it's also having a network of people that will help you build something in the sense that I think when I remember, I think I've only started to tell people I'm a journalist now. And like literally like maybe in the last 3 weeks, I was like, I think I'm a journalist now. I think I've written enough articles and I've been in enough like done talk shows to be an art journalist now, because it was just like a thing that I was like, you don't always want to be the first. Like I'm telling you, if everyone else is a journalist, it would be like saying I'm a doctor or a nurse or a teacher. It would be a normal profession. Nobody would be like, what a weirdo. So I guess that's why, but I think having people around you who are literally, I just see it as like, you just need people to hype you on a regular basis. And I'm so grateful, like, alhamdulillah, my friends are literally that people. I will call them and I'll be like, guys, this is a terrible idea. I don't know what I was thinking. I think this is a really good task for someone to do in 10 years time, just not me. Like, I literally have massive moments where I'm just like, I can't do this. And they're literally like, listen, you need to go out and do it. You've done it so much. Don't let yourself down now. And they'll really hype me. And at times I'm just like, okay, you guys, you're doing too much. Like this, you're being way too positive. And it's like in an industry or and especially when you're in an environment where you already feel like you're not supposed to be there and you feel so negative about it, it's even more detrimental if you're negative about yourself. So you need people to just be positive around you and hype you. And I'm a big believer in the fact that friends aren't like, in the sense that you make friends when you're a kid and you grow up with them forever. There's different people for different stages of your life. And for the stage that I'm at now, I've got really positive people who constantly are like to me, yo, you're doing amazing, you're doing great, you should do this, you should do that. And you need that, especially when I feel like confidence and self-belief is a very delicate thing. And it's not something that I've necessarily always had. And I acknowledge that about myself. And I know that I've not always been very confident and I've not always had a lot of self-belief. But now that I do have that, I very much value it, and I like to protect it by making sure that people around me just basically give me a lot of positive energy. And if they don't, I'm like, this is very expensive energy.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
Yeah, it's all about attitude, like gathering people around you that have the right attitude, and not only always being like, yeah, I think you can do that, but really giving you the understanding that you, with your unique skills and strengths and passions, can do it. Like just making you understand that you have all that it takes inside of you. That's very big.
Yeah, and you need that. And it's like sometimes you might not see the value in what you're doing, and you need like an outside perspective to be like, to actually this you doing something, it's not just about you, it's bigger than you. And I've had that, and I've had to like have that conversation quite a lot on a regular basis with a lot of people, because it's something that I've quite fight hard to be like, I self-doubt a lot. I'm like, they are like, I mean, I'm not that good at sports anyway, so I don't understand what
you sabotage yourself.
Yeah, you sabotage yourself, and it's not needed. And you need to just really upskill yourself and upsell yourself. And sometimes you need other people to be like, you are great at this because you have this about you. You are great at this because of this reason. Not just because you're great, but because, there's other things to it. And when you have those conversations with people, you start to build up your self-belief and your self-confidence, and like once you have that, you start to become a bit more protective over it. And I think that's what, in the long run, it benefits you, it benefits your friends, it benefits your family. Everyone will benefit from the circumstance, but you just need to keep kind of persevere with it. And I guess it's the same in any other field or any other industry you work in. It's about how do you upskill yourself and make yourself better. And sometimes it's doing stuff in your spare time, and sometimes it's doing stuff in late hours that you don't really want to be doing, but you know that it will eventually lead to you doing better in the long run.
Yes, that's very true. So I have a last question actually for you. You have a podcast.
Yeah.
Actually, that's my second last question. You have a podcast, and I would love to know how did you start the podcast, and what are your top tips for starters who want to start a podcast to get into podcasting?
So I started the podcast very simply on my phone. iPhones are great for recording stuff, so are Androids or any other phone. I think what people don't realise is the technology we have in our hands. So myself and my friend, we live in I live on one side of the UK and she lives on the other. So we kind of just was like, let's record it. We FaceTime over Skype, and then we record the audio. So I record my audio on my phone and she records hers and her phone, and then we upload it to Google Drive, and then I edit the audio on Audacity, which is a free software to download. So it's a very, very cheap way of running things. And then we just use SoundCloud for the first part of it. So SoundCloud is a free uploading software, and then that will help you convert it to iTunes. So set up an iTunes account, link it into SoundCloud, and I think trial and error. Like if I was to listen to my third podcast now, everything is out of sync. Like I think I laughed 10 seconds later from when she speaks. Because I didn't go to school, I didn't learn at school. It was very much YouTube tutorials, so I utilised some of the information that I had. My nephew's here. Come on.
Every time I want to play on this.
Can you ask Fozia, please? Please, I'm on the phone. Thank you. Give me a second. Come. I don't literally this is what my holiday is inclined of. It's just babysitting and looking after people. But I'm just in a very important call. Can you ask Fozia for me? Thank you.
Is she awake?
Yeah, go on, ask her. It's 5 minutes. Bye. Thanks. Sorry. We lasted this long without kid interrupting. I don't understand. Sorry. So you go on. I did it via SoundCloud. So uploaded it on SoundCloud, which starts off free, but I think after 60 hours of upload you have to pay for it, but it's not that much of a cost. And then linking that into iTunes or Spotify and then that's kind of how it came off. And in terms of building an audience, I just shared it on social media. I did a lot of just tagging a lot of different organizations that I knew would be interested in it. So like women in football, women in sports, FIFA women's. That's how it came together, was just a lot of sharing on platforms, and that's how the audience grew as time goes on. But initially we started with just a podcast, and after we did that for probably about 6 months, we went into doing Instagram, and that we just started doing videos on Instagram. So we did a very slow growth. We what we did do is we kind of created the social media platforms, but we didn't post anything on them, so just that we had the social kind of the apps so that they're all the same. And then once we were ready to put that extra step in or extra little bit of work in, we kind of progressed into it.
Nice. That's beautiful, because it shows you step by step, like first start with this, make it easy, like just go on it, your phone is enough. And it really is. And platforms like Audacity, SoundCloud, also Anchor are all free platforms you can use to upload your podcast. So it's amazing. Okay, the last question is actually a question that you can ask to the audience about anything that we spoke about today, any of the topics, whether that would be being the first or only in a space, building your personal brand, upskilling yourself, finding the confidence and like gathering positive people around you. What would a question be that you wanted to ask the audience that they could answer in the comments below?
I think my question would be in case of what is your drive, and like what is it that makes you do what you want to do, and how do you regularly remind yourself of that, especially when when work becomes repetitive after a while, or it becomes normalized for you to be in certain circles, how do you remind yourself, actually, this is why I'm doing it, and this is the end goal, or this is the drive behind it? So how do you kind of reignite that interest or that passion in yourself? It's important to look back at that.
Yeah, to always check in again and see, is that why or the drive the same? That's beautiful. Yeah, it's the next question. What's your drive, and what makes you want to do what you want to do, and how do you remind yourself of it regularly? Nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you, my lovely.
I really hope you loved this conversation. Leave down in the comments whatever value or insight was your favorite from this episode. And if you want to learn more about personal branding, I'm opening up my coaching calls for you this month. So click the link in the description or go to sinaport.com/book-a-call. You can set up a call with me. We can go through how to build your personal brand. These exclusive coaching calls are only for business owners. So if you want to participate, you have to go and apply to get into personal branding and build the personal brand that's true to who you are. And if you think someone needs to hear this message, please share it with her. Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel and click the notification button to never miss the newest and freshest content. And I'll see you next time, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.